Squid Game, the most watched series in the world. But do you know who created it and how much struggle he went through in his life? That's the story of Hwang Dong-hyuk, the man behind Squid Game, a series that didn't just break Netflix records, it shattered them. But long before the world watched hundreds of desperate contestants fight for survival, Hwang was fighting for his own survival in real life, in ways far darker and far more personal than the show ever revealed. Hwang Dong-hyuk wasn't born into fame, fortune, or connections. He grew up in Seoul, South Korea, raised by a single mother who struggled with debt. Their apartment was small, their finances unstable, and their future uncertain. While other kids dreamed of toys, Hwang often dreamed of simply being able to afford the next meal. His mother worked endlessly to keep the family afloat, yet every month felt like another battle. This wasn't a dramatic scene, this was his everyday life. The feeling of financial fear, the kind that keeps you awake at night, became something he understood before he could even spell the word fear. As he grew older, he developed a fascination with films, but unlike typical movie lovers, Hwang didn't simply enjoy watching them, he studied them. He paused scenes, replayed moments, analyzed dialogue. He wasn't just watching movies, he was dissecting them. But pursuing filmmaking wasn't considered practical. In South Korea, careers must be stable, predictable, respectable. Filmmaking was none of those. Yet something inside him refused to let go. He applied to the Korean Academy of Film Arts, one of the most competitive film schools in the country, and to his own surprise, he was accepted. That acceptance letter wasn't just an entry into film school, it was a lifeline. But a dream accepted is not a dream funded. Hwang had almost no money. He relied on scholarships, borrowed from friends, and often skipped meals just to afford film equipment or editing supplies. Sometimes days went by where he ate nothing but ramen, and even that felt like a luxury. The hunger, the stress, the uncertainty. He lived through emotions that Squid Game would one day capture so brutally on screen. In his early years, he created short films and documentaries, many of them inspired by ordinary people fighting silent battles. These weren't glamorous stories, they were stories of human survival, invisible struggles, and the economic pressures that shaped his own life. His breakthrough came with his film Silenced, a shocking and heartbreaking story about real-life abuse at a school for the deaf in South Korea. The movie was so powerful that it sparked national outrage and led to major legal reforms. Hwang became known not just as a filmmaker, but as a storyteller who could change society. For the first time in his life, he felt like he had a purpose larger than himself. But even success can hide a brutal truth. Recognition does not always mean financial stability. By 2009, Hwang's life took a devastating turn. His mother was drowning in debt, he was jobless, and years of financial instability had pushed him to the edge. The pressure collapsed onto his chest like a mountain, and in that darkness, in that suffocating mixture of fear and hopelessness, the earliest ideas for Squid Game were born. He wrote the first draft in 2009 inside a comic book cafe. Because he couldn't afford to stay at home with the heating on, he spent countless nights surrounded by graphic novels about survival games and dark worlds, wondering if anyone would ever care about the story he was creating. He pitched the idea to multiple studios. One rejection after another hit him like punches. They told him the story was too violent, too unrealistic, too depressing, too risky, and most painful of all, no one will watch this. It's strange how the world once rejected the very thing it would later obsess over. Hwang grew so broke during this period that he had to sell his laptop, the same laptop he wrote the script on, just to buy food and pay bills. The creator of the world's biggest Netflix show couldn't afford his own life. That contrast would later become the emotional heartbeat of Squid Game. Years passed. He worked on smaller films, tried to rebuild his life, and stored his Squid Game script away like a forgotten wound. The world wasn't ready for it, and honestly, neither was he. But stories have a strange way of returning when the world finally needs them. By 2018, Korea's economic divide had grown sharper, competition was harsher, and society felt increasingly pressured. Netflix, now expanding into Korean originals, wanted bold, risky concepts. And suddenly, Hwang's forgotten script wasn't too dark. It was perfect. He dusted off the old pages. The characters, Gi-hun, Sang-woo, Sae-byeok, all came from people he knew growing up. Ordinary people crushed by debt. Ordinary people desperate to survive. Ordinary people who felt the world was a game designed for them to lose. Every moment, every emotional beat, every desperate decision in Squid Game came from something he had lived, seen, or survived. This wasn't fiction for him. This was memory. When filming began, the pressure was enormous. The budget was huge. The expectations were uncertain. And Hwang directed the series alone, without a co-writer or co-director. It was his vision from start to finish. He pushed himself to the point of exhaustion. His hair started falling out from stress, literally. But he kept going because he knew he was finally telling the story he was born to tell. And then came 2021. Squid Game launched. At first numbers were good, then great, and then the entire world exploded. Within 28 days, it became the biggest Netflix show of all time. 142 million households watched it. The pink jumpsuits became global costumes. The sugar candy challenge took over TikTok. The giant doll became a cultural icon. Even the most remote countries started whispering about the mysterious Korean survival show that felt disturbingly familiar to real life. But behind the global celebration, there was one man watching quietly, a man who once sold his laptop to eat. Hwang Dong-hyuk didn't celebrate with a huge mansion or expensive lifestyle. Instead, he sat down and reflected on the impossible irony. A story about poverty, written during poverty, became the biggest entertainment phenomenon created by a man who once feared he would die poor. That emotional twist is something no fiction could ever match. But success brought something else too: responsibility. People begged for season 2, but Hwang knew pressure could destroy creativity, so he took time, reflected. He said in interviews that he didn't want to repeat season 1. He wanted to evolve it, deepen the meaning, explore the human choices that define us. And that's the thing most people forget. Squid Game wasn't about violence. It was about humanity, about debt, about relationships, about a broken system. And Hwang wanted season 2 to carry that same emotional depth.
And as the world waited, that patience eventually led to something bigger. Not just season 2, but the beginning of a larger story. Hwang didn't stop at one continuation. He kept expanding the world of Squid Game, shaping new seasons that explored deeper fears, harsher truths, and even more human vulnerability.
Today, Hwang Dong-hyuk stands as one of the most influential storytellers in modern entertainment. But his story is not about success. It's about survival. It's about believing in your voice when no one else will. It's about writing in a comic book cafe because your house is too cold. It's about selling your laptop to buy food but refusing to sell your dream. And it's about proving that sometimes the story the world rejects is the story the world needs the most. And that is Hwang Dong-hyuk's real game. Not a game of life and death, but a game of endurance, courage, and the belief that even the darkest chapters can lead to the most extraordinary ending.
If you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend watching this next one. It's just as powerful.